Hello and welcome to Delaney Studios YouTube channel. Today I'll be teaching you how to draw one of these beautiful jellyfish using the following tools. So you'll need a 2B pencil to start all our planning with, a 4B pencil to do all your shading with, anything that's grey tone, and a 6B pencil to do anything that's really dark for shading. I also have two different types of rubbers. So I have a normal eraser, we're used to using those all the time to rub out completely. Then you've got your Kneadable eraser. The Kneadable eraser is like Blutack, but not as sticky. You can use Blutack if you don't have a Kneadable rubber at home. It works almost as well. Sometimes it just gets a little bit sticky, so just be careful of that. Then I do have what I call smudging sticks. In the shops they're called paper stumps. I've got two different sizes. You can see my little one is a new one, and my big one is an older one. The older and more used they are, the better they actually work, and they're used for pushing around shadow to create this lovely shade. So first what we're going to do is start with a new piece of paper, and we're going to start in portrait, and we always start with our 2B pencil first. So that's my 2B pencil. Now what we're going to do is go through the 4 steps of drawing. We use this all the time. So what we're going to do first is to plan. So we need to know what size and shape to do the head of the jellyfish. So you can very softly place a few little guidelines. So it's a top line, a side line, bottom line, and one more side line in the top left corner of your page. Now what we're going to do is step number 2, which is break things down into shapes. And I'm going to zoom in for you here so we can get a nice close capture of this area. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to get the top line of our jellyfish in. We have a nice curve that comes up to our top line and then comes back down again to our side line and curves and stops. So it's kind of like a mushroom top. The next line I'm going to do is the inside edge, and I want to put a couple of waves in there, not too many, just really gentle. Then I want to do the inside edge on the other side of the jellyfish because you can still see some of that, and again I just want to wobble it to make it a bit more natural and bring it up to the corner. Once you've got your jellyfish head shape in, you can get your eraser, so that's your normal white eraser, and you can just get rid of your guidelines. They've done their job, we don't need them anymore. That's why we always do them very soft. Okay. Now, we're going to get into the main tentacles right now. So we're going to do the thicker ones first. So there are 4 of them. So I'm going to start by thinking about the placement first. So this is part of step 3, which is joining the shapes together to make some kind of sense. So this is all about adding those extra bits in. So what I'm going to do is just do some little guidelines about sort of where I roughly want them to go. So I'm going to say 1's going to start there, number 2 is going to start about there, leave a little bit of a gap, number 3 maybe here, and number 4 there. So I know where my big, thick tentacles are going to start. So what we're going to do now is a smooth line that curves, and you can have it curving as many times as you like. I'm going to bring it right down to the bottom of my page. So quite squiggly, but not really close together. You notice I've stretched it out quite a bit. And I'm going to do the same on the other one. Number 2. Come off the page as well. Number 3. Off the page. Then number 4. And I'll let that one finish before I go off the page. So we've got our solid lines for one side of each of these thick stingers or tentacles. So what we're going to do now is the other side of those. So the other side is very squiggly. So what we can do is bring our wobbly lines down to the curve, and then I want you to stop. So you're bringing it really close to that corner. Then I'm going to start on the other side. Squiggle it around till I get to the corner again and stop. So at each turn or curve, you're going to stop the wobbly line like it's crossing over itself. I'm going to start again on the other side, wobble it. And then we can just wobble it to a little corner, a little point. And now you're going to do the same on all of the rest of those tentacles. You can pick any side you want to do the wobbles. They don't always have to be on the same side. So now we have all 4 thick tentacles there. So what we need to do now is get rid of the line that's inside each of those. So we don't need the head of the jellyfish to be in there. It makes it much easier if you draw quite softly. So we have a little saying, keep it light until it's right. You definitely don't want to press with these. So if you accidentally rubbed out any of the lines you still need, just pop those back in. And that's the planning of the main tentacles done. Now I can get into the last step of drawing, which is the detail. So detail includes the thin tentacles, so the actual stingers, and it also includes shading. So we'll get onto that next. Still with your 2B pencil, we're going to come in and we're going to fill in some of these gaps. We're going to crisscross our stingers over, and then we're going to come back in with detail for the shading with our 4 and 6B. So I'm going to start thin stinger number 1 all the way over here. This one crosses behind, so make sure you sort of track your pencil, so don't draw a line over the thick tentacle. Just sort of lift your pencil off a little bit and just track it across so it's in the right spot. And you can have this going anywhere you want. Let me just do a second line. And try to get it so it's getting thinner and thinner as it comes to the end. Then it just ends in a point. And you can fill in as many as you like for that one. You don't need to count the stingers, just do as many as you can fit. Just do it nice and slow, don't rush. A nice wobble in some of these stingers creates the illusion that it's floating in water. So that's why it's really important not to do any straight ones. You want to keep it nice and flowing. Just remember that we're not here to be perfect. If you have some wobbly lines that don't fit perfectly, or they get close and then far away, then close again in these little stingers, that's fine. Then just double check if you've got a gap that you think might need to be filled. And I'm thinking something here might be nice to break up this large area that I have here. So I can even pop another one in there. Break up that space. See how that fills that space nicely? So again, you do not have to copy this exactly. Just look at the space that you need to fill. And you've got all of your basics. So we've done all of our planning, we've done our shapes and lines, we've joined them together to make a complete creature or object. And now we're going to get into step 4, which is detail. So detail does also include doing the detail in the stingers, but it also includes the shading, which is what we're going to move on to next. So I'm going to use my 4B pencil to start off with, and then I'm going to build up to my 6B. So this is my 4B pencil. Nice and sharp. You want to make sure when you're doing shading that you keep your hand a little bit further back. So this position is great for writing, but it actually puts too much pressure on the tip of the pencil, so you end up colouring too hard using your 4B. So what you want to do is just move your hand back. Even if it's just a couple of centimetres or it's in the middle of your pencil, that's fine as well. Just whatever you're comfortable doing. It feels really uncomfortable if you're not used to it, but once you're used to doing it, it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to, again, zoom in on the head of the jellyfish, and let's do some shading together. Okay, so we've got our 4B pencil ready to go, nice and sharp, holding it a little bit further back. I've got a nice zoom in of the head of the jellyfish. What we're going to do is like scribble shading, basically. So it's not flicking and it's not cross-hatching. It is actually just shading in a way where we're doing lots of squiggles. So I'm going to start at this bottom edge of the head first. So you can start anywhere, it doesn't have to be in a corner or anything. But what I want you to focus on is just squiggling upwards, and I'm keeping it really soft. Because I'm holding so far away, holding the pencil so far away, it means that I'm not pressing too hard. So I'm just building up my shadow to begin with. I only want it to be soft shadow at first. And I'm going to bring some of these squiggles up a bit further than others. And I'm going to build it up. And I'm going to go over it later with 6B, but for now, 4B is good. So I've got a really nice, just basic light grey undertone. I'm going to do a little bit up the top. Just gives the illusion of it being rounded. And they don't have to touch the top and bottom shading. Then I'm going to add a little bit of shading in this underneath section. So this is the other side of the jellyfish body. So lots on the top and lots on the bottom, but not too much in the middle. Again, it's all just soft grey. That's what 4B is used for, any of the softer tones. We'll come in with 6B later. Okay, from here we can get our smudging stick. So I'm just going to use this one. They're the same on both ends, they're just dark from me using it lots. All you need to do is just in that squiggly motion, just give it a little bit of a smudge, doesn't need too much. What the smudging stick or paper stump, if they call it paper stump in the shops, what that does is just smooth out all of your colouring in lines. I still want to see some of it, that's why I'm not really overly working it. But see how it's a little bit smoother? Just evens out your shading a little bit. The hardest part of this bottom part is remembering which bit is tentacle or stinger and which bit is the head of the jellyfish. And that is actually all the 4B that's in this jellyfish. So we can go straight up into 6B pencil. Get my 6B here, and it's really nice and sharp again. And what I want you to do first is just outline the head of the jellyfish again. If you're doing this super realistically, you would not outline. You might create a bit of a background or something to make it pop, but you wouldn't outline. This is a bit more cartoon sort of style. You'll notice with the skinnier stingers that I didn't rub out the head of the jellyfish line through each one. It's too small and fiddly, so I didn't bother doing that, and I'm going to outline all of those for 6B as well. It's got a nice heavy outline, and now I'm going to build up that shadow. So again, we're going to do our squiggles. And this is really where you get all your depth from, your shading depth. Go over and over it as many times as you need to really create a nice dark baseline there. Okay, so let's get our smudging stick again. I'm only doing it really lightly this time because I really like the patterns that I came up with the scribble shading. It's nice and loose. Also a tip, if you've done something like this where you've done your smudging outside of your jellyfish head, this is where the kneadable rubber or your Blutack comes in handy. So you just pinch it to a bit of a line and then you just drag along the edge and clean it up. Also, if you don't have a smudging stick like this, of course you can use a tissue and you can just wrap that tissue around your finger and use your finger as a smudging stick. I prefer that than using just your plain finger to smudge because your fingers can have a bit of oil on them, which can actually stain the paper. So you don't want that to happen. So tissue is a better option. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of 6B on the underneath, just a little bit. I don't want to overdo it. Doesn't need a lot. And you can use a smaller smudging stick, or you can twist your tissue into a little point and use that as a smudging stick, a smaller point. Just a little. Also another tip, if you feel like you've smudged a little too much, again you can use your Kneadable and you can just use little wiping motions to get little highlights out of your jellyfish. If you feel like it's missing some little highlights in there, you can just pull it out. Okay, so the head is now finished. So we're going to move on to the stingers or the tentacles. So I'm going to zoom back out and then we'll get started with those with 6B. Okay, I've got my 6B pencil here, nice and ready. And I've given it an extra little sharpen so it's really, really nice and sharp. So we're ready to move on to outlining all of our stingers or tentacles. So what we're going to do, I like to start with the chunkier ones first. If you're worried about smudging anything, what you can do is use either a tissue or a scrap bit of paper to work on top of, so you don't end up smudging your artwork. Okay, let's get into outlining the thicker tentacles first, might be easier. So you can put a little bit of pressure on, but again, don't hold it too close to the tip. This is the bit you want to go slow on, guys. Do not rush this bit, okay? It's very tempting to plow through it because you just want to get it done. But if you do that, you're more than likely to go outside of the lines you've already created. See the difference between the outline of the 6B and the 2B? It pops way more. That's one done. Move your piece of paper up so you're not leaning your hand on your artwork. It's two. 3. Four. So that's all the thick ones done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go sharpen my pencil again, and I'm going to come in and do my thin stingers next. Okay, so let's come in with our scrap bit of paper or tissue, and we'll work on the thin stingers. This is all still with 6B. Sharp pencil is very important here. Okay, I'm going to go sharpen my pencil again. It's already too blunt, so take some time to do an extra sharpen. Okay, nice sharp pencil again. Piece of paper so it covers your artwork, doesn't get all smudgy. Last one. Okay, all outlined. So what we're going to do next is a little bit more detail in the thicker stingers or tentacles. These generally are going to be quite thin as well. There's some little lines that are inside. So what I'm going to do again is sharpen my pencil again, because they're going to do 2 lines inside each thick tentacle. Okay, nice sharp pencil again. Now I'm going to wobble these lines. Here's your second one. A little bit extra detail, just adds to the whole thing. Last one. That's all the outlines done. So what you can do also is take a moment just to make sure that you haven't smudged anything. I can see a few little smudges in mine. So again, you just take your Kneadable or Blutack. If you don't have any of those things, that's fine. Just use your normal rubber. Just get rid of any little bits of smudging that you can see, just to clean it up a little. Hopefully the tissue or scrap bit of paper stopped most of that from happening. Then of course the last thing you want to do is go back to your 2B, or you can grab a pen if you prefer. I'm just going to use a 2B, nice and sharp. And you're going to write your name on it or sign it if you have a signature. And then of course you want to put the year. If you don't want to put the whole date, just put 2021 or whatever year you were doing this. It's really good to note when you do your artwork, so you can look back and compare sort of how far you've come in the coming years that you'll be trying different artworks out. So it's always a really great idea to pop a date on things. So that's it, guys. That's your beautiful floating jellyfish. And I'll see you next time for another lesson.